I watched Oppenheimer the other night.
Ooh.
That's on Netflix now. I was gonna pay for it, but now I don't have to.
Ah,
So that's been on my mind a bit, sort of a wee reminder of the state of the world, and we all sort of
yeah.
it's weird how we don't think about nuclear weapons in the modern
Yeah,
age.
it is weird. Like,
Like,
when
talking to
the
Milani about
Cold
it.
War was the main thing, sorry, I'll mute that so that no further distractions. It's weird to think back on how nuclear weapons and nuclear annihilation was the big thing in the Cold War, and like children wondering if they would get to grow up and recorded saying that. And it's these days it's sort of been acclimatized to, and I've forgotten all about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about the environment, no one thinks about nuclear weapons,
Hmm.
which is I don't know, it's like it's not real for people anymore. Back then,
Hmm.
it was on TV, people had experienced it. Now we only see it in movies, and people are like, "Oh, yeah, that's never gonna happen."
Hmm.
We seem to think that we've got that post-war theory of war is over and we're all civilized now, and our ancestors were stupid. And here we are, like, inching closer to war every day with
Hmm.
the other country that has the most nukes.
Yeah. Well, I recently saw that. I don't know the precise details, but Israel shelled an embassy in Gaza. Everyone's saying by accident, of course, but it's like it's the
A
headline was
Russian
the.
embassy?
I'm not sure which embassy, but apparently
Yeah.
shelling an embassy like that has never happened before because people are like, no, don't shell the embassy.
Yeah, yeah,
And
embassy is
like,
a big deal because that's
and
technically land owned by the origin country.
yeah, and an aid worker's truck with a hole in the roof from a shell hitting it, with like the hole through the aid worker's poster on
It's
top. It's
very
like,
convenient.
yeah, yeah, and it's one speculation I saw was that Israel are trying to pull the US into
And
a big
defending them.
war. Yeah, and
Yeah, they're sort of well, they're proxy allies anyway.
mm,
Everyone is aware that Israel is fighting as hard as it is because, well, I mean, they have their own ideological reasons, but they have the US as backup, and everyone
mm,
knows that they're the hard power ally in the area.
mm,
Like Israel is not a navy nation, as far as
no,
I'm aware, but the United States is, and I'm pretty sure they have battle groups sitting right outside their doorstep at the moment.
mm,
I don't know too much about that conflict. I don't want to
yeah,
go in detail on it, but I do think it's funny because
yeah,
it sort of revealed a lot of cards for everyone on all sides of the spectrum of where they actually stand.
mm,
And yeah, you were talking about it not long ago. All of a sudden, half of Democrat voters are turning around and going, being quite anti-Semitic, and everyone's
mm.
freaking out, going, what do I say on TV? How do I get the votes now?"
Uh, it's it's funny to watch politicians who are career politicians versus. Oh, there was a great analogy for Donald Trump that I came across in an article recently of using his enormous ego as a battering ram to whack some sense into the system. It's like if you need a big stick, his ego is certainly big enough.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting because we've been, edging closer to war,
Mm,
and then they had that election coming up, and it looks like he's going to win. What's it going to look like if we're on the brink of war and all of a sudden Donald Trump takes over political office in the United States? I suppose the answer to that question depends on your political perspective. That
mm,
whether you're pro the guy or not, well, yeah, predicting the future be hard.
yeah,
I
yeah.
wonder. There was talk for a while about Putin using nuclear weapons tactically against Ukraine, and I know it's morbid to say, but I'm wondering if that'd actually be a good thing.
In the sense of less total casualties, same reasoning as the US in the Second World War.
No, actually, I mean in terms of a cultural shock.
Mm.
a reminder of what they are and what to be concerned about. Because everyone's been real rah rah anti Putin, pro Ukraine in the West, and social media has done a lot of that. But we live in the age of the camera, and for one to be detonated in a military sense against a nation like Ukraine, which is not a NATO ally, so it wouldn't immediately be global war, people would see it and it would sink in a reality in a way that it hasn't since, well, since a lot of the older people have died. Perhaps humanity needs a little bit of a reminder of why war is a bad idea now.
I can't help thinking of the various games that are set in post-nuclear apocalypses, like Fallout, which not familiar with it at all, but
It's a good game.
how many settings in movies and or games are there that include nukes going off? And would people look at it and say, "Oh, that was just a small one"? Because a tactical nuke, I'm suspecting, would be probably similar to a Moab, Mother of All Bombs, where it's just like a something like a crate load of TNT going off at once. Daisy cutters, I think they also call them, because like you drop it
Mm,
in a patch of forest and then, oh, there's a landing site because there's no more forest there anymore.
I somehow doubt that. I don't think anything would go off that's smaller than on the original Trinity test. As far as my awareness is, the smallest nuclear weapons that are in possession are of equivalent size to those that were used.
There were some tests I remember where they did aim to go smaller. Like if you the one of the limitations. Okay, so basic
Okay,
fission.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Assuming that's the case, I'll just take you
Mm,
on your word on that. Why, as a military power, would you use such a weapon? Once.
mm,
If you were going to use little ones, you'd use them lots in terms of artillery. But if he was going to make a statement, he would make a
mm,
statement with probably not a hydrogen, probably not a big one, but he'd probably
mm,
make a statement with a single use weapon,
mm.
not necessarily for the actual impact and damage, but for the psychological damage value. And my point is maybe in the modern world, seeing that would be a pretty good wake up call for maybe we need to not be aging towards war.
Mm. There was a post I saw recently. Was it someone who likes to keep track of both sides in the sense of he's aware that the US news is propaganda as much as the Russian news, and so he looks at both of them to see what the propaganda is saying. And he came out saying, "Heads up to the people who follow me. Russia have just assigned the blame for the recent terror attack in Moscow to partly to Ukraine, as in they've claimed that the head of the Ukrainian intelligence service was involved in the planning of that attack,
I wouldn't be
even though ISIS
surprised.
have, yeah, some sort of tangential involvement would be possible. ISIS have claimed responsibility for it. It's one of those, I don't know, I'm not,
ISIS, really?
that's, that's what I heard. Like,
See, now that's interesting, isn't it?
mm,
Okay, so you've got a whole bunch of tangential relations to the United States there, all the way back from the Hezbollah days, and training opposition to was it Afghanistan's government,
mm,
um, and Taliban. That's
yeah,
what I'm thinking of. Yeah, and then ISIS is like Taliban point two. It's
yeah.
interesting for them to go after Russia. They've never, as far as I'm aware, been anything involved with those nations.
Splinter group, I think.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, it could
But
just be lone people. You'd never know.
yeah, the upshot of this scenario was that under international law, countries have to uh, not export, export to another country for trial. I think extradite. That's it. They have to
Mm,
extradite people involved in terrorism. And so Russia is invoking this clause saying, we want these people in connection with this terrorist event. And so, by the letter of international law, if Ukraine doesn't comply, then that gives Russia um, a way to say you are sponsoring terrorism. We therefore declare war on you for that. And that then opens up new clauses in their constitution, so they're actually at war instead of having a special military operation. Which they keep saying that, and that's the reason for it, that their constitution limits what they can do until it's an actual declared war, which has to go through their Senate or whatever.
right.
And
Oh,
a
like
comment that
the
I've
United States, yeah,
yeah
unilaterally invading nations without declaring war. It's the same thing.
yeah um, but one of the points that I've heard made from this guy who keeps track of things is that, okay, there's Putin. Let's compare him to the other guys around him. They're all warmongers relative to Putin. Putin is the same calm guy in the Russian
Mm.
room.
Oh,
And
yeah,
people
yeah.
say, take Putin out. It's like, no, 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 no. Everyone else is worse. And
It's quite
yeah,
funny, to be honest to me, seeing that Russia is now the big enemy, and it's socially unacceptable to say anything good about them, or particularly him. But like you were mentioning before, you can see through the propaganda if you watch both sides spill their propaganda. I used that quite a bit during Trump's initial campaign and election season to be able to flip back and forth between RT and American news was really insightful. Um, generally being the case that RT was pretty on the money and saying a lot of truth about what was happening in the States, but wouldn't do that for their own country. And then I imagine there's probably at the time a bit of an inverse, but things have been more complicated now. Putin was always a figure who was very reasonable, very pro West, very pro traditions, and even very pro religion, rather based figure. And now all of a sudden, well, I guess it fits in the left's view of anything right wing is enemy. But he's the big bad guy. And now even people who would have traditionally agreed with him on many points can't.
mm, yeah. It was interesting reading the comments below the Russia Today article that was linked to about Russia demanding that Ukraine give up those terror-involved suspects. Um, a lot of "hurry up and take out those neo-Nazis" type comments. We should roll over them tomorrow. Send in a nuke or whatever type comments. Um,
Hmm.
and of course, it's not an unbiased sample of the Russian people, but it's like the expectation when Russia invaded Ukraine, whatever the surrounding geopolitical stuff that may or may not be taken into account in most interpretations of it, was sanctions went on. That was going to destroy the Russian economy and make the people of Russia so desperate that they would accept America steamrolling over the top, basically. And I hear different interpretations of what the result of that has been, but it certainly hasn't been as effective as expected.
Yeah, their economy's doing pretty well, last I heard.
Yeah,
They had
like
a big crash, and now they've come back quite a bit.
yeah, yeah, like they put some laws in place that any franchise in Russia of an American company was allowed to just steal the IP and just carry on trading under a new logo. So it's like they still have McDonald's, they just call it something slightly different.
Yeah,
And
it's Russian
Subway and
McDonald's now.
yeah, yeah. And like they're getting steadily more friendly with various countries around the world. Like there's the BRICS
Mm.
trying to set up a new reserve currency type thing for international trading and the
Yeah, you can't cut off a country like Russia from the world economy when they have
mm,
so much natural resources. It's
mm,
really dumb. Like, they have a lot of food, like, a lot of food. They have a lot of, oil, they have a lot of uranium, and they produce a lot of fertilizer through nitrogen.
Mm,
These things are things people need. I don't care what policy is policy, but people don't give a shit when they need food
mm,
or fuel. These things kinda matter, and
mm,
people are all well and good to listen to what the right thing to do is until it goes against their interests,
mm,
particularly on the nation level. And especially if you're gonna make this dividing line, as the West is trying to do, between good countries who will listen to moral reason over pure resource gain and countries who won't, who are the bad countries, all you're gonna do is get all the bad countries to start trading together and make their own network.
mm. Bad according to whoever's defining it.
Well, bad in this situation would be countries who listen to US's argument and go, either A, I don't believe you, or B, you may be right, but I need my fertilizer, so I don't care. In which
Mm,
case, you're just going to get, by necessity, a massive organization of countries that are not pro West. And
mm,
all of a sudden, you've got a divided world again, first and second world.
mm. Yeah, like heard an interesting thing recently. I didn't, I wasn't listening too closely, and I don't track this closely to understand, but apparently there's been some developments in the gold market if you watch closely. Like if you look at flow in and out of the London Gold Exchange versus the price of gold, it had sort of sloshed in and out with the price, and then it stopped sloshing. Right? It's now just, instead of just trickling out on average, it's now trickling out no matter what the price is doing. And people who are in the business of trading physical gold and yeah, focused on gold, uh, they were saying we're seeing bars that were cast in the 70s. So people are starting to scrape the bottom of their vaults. It's not new shiny bars. It's like, yeah, this bar looks like it was cast together from three different bits with not enough heat to make it all smooth and not polished and so on. And there's a question, the gold seems to be flowing east, as in towards Asian countries.
Hmm.
And yeah,
A lot of those countries have far better intuition when it comes to those things. And I don't
mm,
just mean governments, I mean citizens. Like,
mm,
India is a great example. They will do everything they can to have physical gold on their person all the time.
mm,
And they get money, they don't keep it in the bank, they buy a gold chain. And they see
mm,
that as an investment, which it is. Yeah,
yeah,
there's some money on it, but still.
yeah. It's been interesting because the my new girlfriend is Chinese. It still feels weird to say that because it's still new, but it was interesting talking to her about the situation over there and the perspective that she has on various things. Like the housing market's basically screwed
Yeah.
because what was the comment? It takes six pockets to buy a house. You need to empty six pockets. That's four parents and two children, two adult children's, all their savings going into one house. Like the house prices are like the same as New Zealand for dramatically different income levels.
Yeah, and they've
And
got way more houses as well.
a whole lot more empty ones. It's like
Yeah.
200% oversupply or something.
Yeah, and they still keep buying them because they see the value only increases over time.
Mm,
As long as the system keeps going, it works all right for the people who buy in. But as soon as it crashes, whoever was the last person to buy gets screwed.
Ponzi.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a Ponzi scheme. Yeah.
Yeah,
And they kept artificially high.
yeah. And it's going to be. There are a lot of things happening in the world. There's Israel, there's Russia and Ukraine, there's China, various housing market crashes, there's the everything bubble in the global economy, there's various ways that you can look at the numbers in the um, economics and say, yeah, this is fixed. It's a fixed game. Not in the sense of, oh, it's subtle fixing, like various forms of derivatives and when they're sold and traded, and various automatic trading that happens 100 times a second, and
House always wins.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's
but
50.1%. That's all it needs to be.
yeah, yeah. Do a million trades at 50.1%, and yeah.
Yeah. One person has zero, the other person has everything.
Mm. But that's not a game that could be played forever.
Nope.
And
Because when people hit
this,
zero, revolutions happen. And they're
yeah,
never peaceful, and everyone starves because of them, rich
yeah.
included.
Mm. But also, like, even if we just look at the financial aspect of it, like, if you have the way our monetary system is structured now with interest-bearing debt, which we're all acclimatized to, but if you have a bank that makes a loan with interest, and that money goes through the chain, someone pays their builder or whatever, and that money gets deposited, then another loan is made. In order for there to be enough dollars in the system to pay back the first loan with the interest, that much more money has to be created by more debt going into more people's pockets and then so on. And
Yeah.
if that shrinks, it's not, oh, it's shrinking now. It's everything defaults.
Yeah.
It's a
If the debt defaults,
cascading thing.
everything disappears.
Mm,
Because our money is debt. That's all it is at this point. Every piece of paper is a note of debt,
mm,
which means if one defaults, they all default. And if they all default, all of the money is worthless.
mm. And there are a bunch of things that the powers that be in financial institutions would do to prevent that, and they've
Yeah.
had to step in various times to stop that.
Well,
But
that's why we have a Federal Reserve
yeah, yeah.
for all the problems that has caused.
One of the comments that I'd noticed myself, I heard it very recently, but a year or three ago, I heard on the radio a financial analyst on national radio here saying that the financial people weren't worried about this or that issue because they knew that the governments would do whatever it took to bail them out. The governments would not let the system fail. And it's
Yeah, they
like,
don't have a choice. Yeah.
ooh,
Yeah, there's no choice. They have to keep the system running, no matter what.
but
And you know
that's
the
not
ultimate card for
infinite.
that, don't you?
They can't do that forever. At some point, the
Uh,
system will become irrelevant.
yes and no.
Mm,
There is an ultimate card to be played, and I think we're inching pretty close to it. What do you do when the economy of the world is as shaky as possible to shore it up, keep it going long enough to change it?
old backing?
War,
Mm,
emergency powers, control of manufacture, a forced kick into the economy of you need to make things now. War is very good for the economy. And it also gives you enough authority during those times to make the changes you need to prevent it to happen again. Emergency measures. That's the time where you can both keep things afloat and change the system
mm.
to delay or hopefully fix to prevent it.
I feel like it's pretty certain a pretty good bet to say that that scenario has been planned out.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, I'm
and
I'm pretty confident that war is coming
mm,
for the financial interest alone.
mm,
I don't think
I,
I don't think any of this is ideological. I don't think the West
mm.
gives a shit about what Russia does. I don't think they're doing it at all. I think they're looking for an excuse to declare war through Congress properly, like they haven't since World War II.
Mm.
And I think they've been pushing and pushing and pushing, not because they want to declare on Russia, but I think they want to declare on China.
There's a scene that I'm recalling from a movie, Mrs. Something or Other's. something day. I forget the title of the movie, but it's about this woman who's down on her luck and run out of money. She is very hungry. She's barely had anything to eat for ages, and she manages to sort of bluff her way into a job as a social secretary for this woman who doesn't even know what that is.
Right.
And so she's rushed through this very busy day, and every time there's something to eat, it's like, oh, dragged away to do something else. So part of the comedy of it is that she doesn't actually get anything to eat over the course of the day, and she's absolutely starving.
Yeah.
And various characters, and there's this. This is set around the start of World War II, or
Ah.
as it's just about to start. And there's a guy who she meets over the course of this who's engaged to a complete airhead of a woman. And the main character and this guy are separated from the rest of the group, and some planes go over because the war is getting started. And they see the other younger guests at this party being all excited. It's like they don't understand, do they? They don't remember. And then the airhead of a woman comes along. Did you see the planes? Aren't they so exciting? And then the two characters share a look of yes, they don't understand.
Mm.
And
That was
I
the
can
theme of the
see
movie.
it's a subplot.
I
There's
meant of
more to it.
Oppenheimer.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, there's a moment where he has to give a speech to the employees at Los Alamos after they've completed the project and the bombs have been dropped. And he's up there and they're all stomping their feet and cheering and applause, and they're wanting him to congratulate them and thank them on the work that they did and go rah rah pro America. And his character's like shaking, standing in front of the thing. I mean,
Mhm.
he's hearing screams and all kinds of stuff while he's standing there trying to fulfill his role and applaud these people. And they're all jumping up and down in that sort of, yeah, 1940s, 1950s pro America way that the TV all does. And what are they cheering for?
Us beat them in the
Yeah,
caveman sense.
yeah. Whereas he understands what they've done.
Yeah. Like, uh, how many people come back from war in in every literal sense of the word, destroyed?
Everyone.
Yeah. Well, there are some people who, by the structure of their personality, enjoy the living on the edge of life and death, like the 5% say. But then there's the large number
Maybe
who,
genuine psychopaths come back okay. But I also
yeah,
doubt
yeah,
that they
the people
survive.
who can just disconnect from it and
Yeah,
don't
but I
care.
also doubt that they survive.
Yeah. So
I don't think that the people who are generally psychopathic actually survive encounters like that physically.
because they don't care enough about their own safety.
They're missing a bunch of the protective mechanisms.
But at the same time, those protective mechanisms can be counterproductive in the sense of you freeze up in terror versus thinking, oh, he's got a gun. Bang, got him. Okay, what's next?
Yes. Yes, that's true. But it also
So
makes you
there's,
careless.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
People like
But
that will survive, but I think they have
mm,
a smaller chance.
mm, but the vast majority, while they may get off less psychologically scarred, like the vast majority of people who experience that sort of environment do not come back the same people. And many cultures are, oh,
We're going to find out firsthand, aren't we?
yeah, and I think our current Western culture is uniquely, maybe not uniquely, but heavily ill prepared for the consequences of that. Like even the relatively small conflicts that we've had over the past few decades, the Iraq, Afghanistan, various small conflicts. It's like you have a trickle of veterans coming back. And like here in New Zealand, you've got the Returned Servicemen's Association, which is a bunch of people from the formerly the First and now mainly the Second World War, who older guys who get together on Anzac Day to remember and drink with their mates. And there are younger members, of course, but it's not as big a thing as
It's not the same. No.
yeah.
I wonder how good it would be for the
Mm.
West, for our soul.
Mm. In the collective
We've
sense, I think it's a
yeah,
part of humanity.
we've got a bit corrupt, and a bit of a fire might be necessary.
Corrupt or soft?
Same thing. Rotting of the soul.
Mm.
Bit of a purging fire. It only destroys the weak elements. I mean, how long has the generations been looking down at the one beneath them and saying that you're weak?
Mm.
You don't understand the dangers of the world. You don't understand what's at stake. There's no better way to understand than to see it. And
Looking at
I
the
get
society
the
as a whole,
feeling we're gonna see it whether we like it or not.
yeah, I feel like half the society as it stands now wouldn't survive that. Like
No,
a
no, but that's the half that you
mm,
wouldn't want them to survive anyway. You take compassion out of it, you make the pure argument for survival of Western culture in the long run.
mm,
What we need in Western culture is an appreciation of Western culture and strength and defense of the weak. And we have neither of those things because of that half. They don't survive, they don't survive. I'm not saying this is, I'm not advocating for this, but I'm coming from the point of it's probably going to happen to us whether we like it or not. So, given that,
mm,
what comes after? Assuming there is an after.
mm. Just thinking about the psychological balance on the small scale of the individual, and then applying that to the larger scale would flow on from that. But you've got there's the horror at meeting malevolence in the world that we all have to go through loss of innocence, but war is a sort of societal scale version of that, which
Mm.
is far more dramatic on those in the brunt of it. And the driving force behind that, some form of righteous anger.
Yeah, that's interesting. I just seen that disconnect. At the moment, it is effectively the democratic establishment, the left leaning liberal elites who are pushing for this war.
Mm,
Yet they are the ones who are pandering to their base about loving the enemy, about inviting them into your house,
mm.
about being pro weakness or pro debauchery. Mostly because they have to, because they're pandering for their election. But I also wonder if that's an antidote to that. Because when a nation goes to war, it immediately becomes right wing. That's just a nature of what it does. It becomes us versus them, in
Mm.
group versus out group. Protect our own, protect our families, protect our children, destroy the enemy. That's
Something that
built into us.
yeah, something that I need to remind myself or find a reminder coming to mind for is, as you say, that is part of us. That
Mm,
the war us and them conflicts are part of being human. Doesn't matter how far back, where you look, there has always been an us and them, and there is a cost to that. There is a cost to schoolyard fights. And on the scale of the individual child, that feels catastrophic at the time. And the odd time a child falls wrong, slams their temple on a rock, and they're dead. It's tragic and absolutely catastrophic for that child and their family. But life is not without risk. Life is not without cost or suffering.
And we wouldn't want one without those things.
I think we wish for one, but there is
Yeah,
a
but if
cost
we
to
got
that.
it, we wouldn't want it. It's all well and good to desire a life like that, but I don't think human beings would actually want to live one if they
Mm.
understood what it meant.
There's a quote I came across. Oh, someone who puts quotes from the Dune books to music, and I should read that book. Uh, Quotes from someone who left humanity behind and promised them a lesson their bones would remember about the dangers of peace, and talking about how people would espouse the value of peace or of a peaceful existence while their actions contradict their words. And so this character promised humanity an enforced peace so great that in the future they would only with the greatest trepidation and preparation embark on such a journey again, because the nature of humanity includes that aspect of needing the chaos. Well, the chaos
Mm.
comes from within as much as without.
You put someone in a playpen that's safe as possible, and they'll do something very dangerous and dumb very quickly.
Mm.
If we don't get it
And
in the external world, we'll try and create it. Hence the
mm,
self-destructive tendencies of Western people.
yeah, and there is an instinct in the young male population for adventure, for risking their lives in pursuit of a worthy cause.
Mm.
And if deprived of that, they then find unworthy causes to have an adventure with. And
Yeah, I
I'm
don't
not
think you can
saying
demoralize people enough to tame them.
that's death. Like, I mean that in a semi-literal sense. That a tamed creature, and I include humans in this because slavery was a thing and that went that far, um, has, in order to end up in that state of being tamed, you must lose, have beaten out of you, removed, give up on, whatever, a potential. I can't place what that is, but there's an enormous potential that is lost. You lose the impulse or repress the impulse to
Agency.
decide your own path.
Yeah, it's agency.
Yeah, you lose your agency, you lose your self determination, you lose that. And there, that's what a wild animal has that a domesticated animal doesn't. A cow doesn't have self determination beyond the odd stroppy episode, because any cows that are too self deterministic end up getting taken out of the herd because they're too disruptive to the farmer.
Yeah.
We don't have that. Or if you go metaphysical,
Well,
it's not intended. We don't need
well,
to
we
go
do.
metaphysical.
We do have that.
Yeah, we do have that.
Our shepherd is just the government.
In that sense, yeah. And
Yeah.
they don't have as much as they would wish it, they don't have the capability to take that out. They want to turn it on and off, but
Well, it depends on how much defensive rights we have. There's a lot more agency in places where there are a lot more weapons.
Mm.
Say what you will about the States, those people have agency in the places where they still have their weapons.
I had the imagery of like the Taliban with everyone's got a gun. It's like those people are in conflict,
Yeah,
but they're not without agency. It's like I
yeah.
will fight for
You can
you.
say
Okay, I
you
changed my
can
mind.
say
I'll fight
whatever
for you.
you like about their morals,
Mm,
but they know what they believe and they stand up for it. They have that
mm.
agency, and
Their
they've
cultural
been
system's very different.
victorious in a long.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Our
yeah.
culture looks at their morals and goes bad or whatever.
Mm,
I don't care about the judgment of it, but my point is they stand up for what they believe, and they're goat farmers, and
mm.
they effectively beat out the world's greatest military because they
Twice.
believed in what they were doing. Yeah,
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 it's like the Soviets came in. What was it? Afghanistan is where empires go to die.
yep,
Um,
yep. And we've
Soviets
known that
came
for a
in.
long time, and people still keep going there.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
a
and
group of
America as well.
motivated individuals. Yeah.
Yeah, they believe what they believe, and they believe it so strongly, religiously, that they're able
Mm,
to overcome anything. And
mm.
yeah, it's not pleasant for them, but they won twice.
Yeah, it's like the Viet Cong. It's like they couldn't beat the United States. No way. They didn't
But they did.
need to. They could just lose for a long time.
Well, they won. Say what you like.
Yeah,
They won in the
yeah,
end. Yeah,
yeah. It's like
they
some of
suffered
the
for it,
traps.
but
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There was some
yeah,
stuff I saw a while back about the
it's what
traps
the
they would
porcupine
make. And
defense. It's like you can eat
yeah,
me, but it's going to be bad. So you
yeah,
don't want
yeah.
to.
I will make every bite you take hurt.
Yeah. Well, we don't have any of that here.
Mm,
Hence why everything comes crashing down. We had the
mm,
lockdowns. We had the farmer protests. We had same as most of the European nations. We got no way of defending ourselves, so they just go as far as they can go until we physically demonstrate without weapons. Because that's all you have left is your own
mm,
body. Still works when nations are willing to listen to the people, but when they
mm.
aren't, it doesn't do anything.
They still need enough motivate, enough loyal people. You can't enforce something without an army.
Yeah, but militaries are and police forces are pretty loyal, regardless of the morals or ethics of the nation.
I was
I'm
thinking
not
more the
aware of.
pay.
I'm not really aware of any example from history where the military or the police refused orders that were immoral or illegal. They just did it anyway. I don't care.
That's an interesting one.
Well, it happened here not so long ago.
Mm. There's
They
lots of
just,
jokes I see on the internet about Canada and the reason there's a Geneva Convention.
yeah, well, I mean, it happened here.
Mm.
You can say what you like, but the Geneva Convention was broken in like every Western country except for one. And even then, it was still broken and only in some states and not in others. So,
Mm.
what do those rules mean? And
We
the
want
only
you to
place that,
fight us this way.
yeah, yeah, except in that way you lose.
Mm.
Well,
Violence works.
yeah,
It's like as much as we would wish it
that's
wouldn't, as
human
much
nature.
as
That's what we
yeah,
are. We are violent animals,
yeah. And
and
so
we
like
get our will. We have a will, but that will is violent,
mm.
or
But at the
can be.
same time, like something that I've been working with over a lot of these conversations is the developing the potential to manifest that in myself, and like having a new relationship sort of has brought that into another layer of perspective for me, and that insight is still developing, but wanting to be able to bring that rage to bear against a threat
Hmm.
and be able to. Oh, I don't want it is not a performative thing. It cannot be a performative thing, or it doesn't work. It's not just looking like you would be a protector. But intimidation of a threat is a real useful strategy. But intimidation is,
You have to actually be a monster.
yeah, and like there's a sort of scenario. Oh, of course, your imagination can come up with nightmare scenarios, but there's the sort of an insight impression that being the monster. Okay, this is not brought together into a rational, thought out thing. This is a few different things that I'm trying to integrate here. But being a monster is not unattractive. Being a monster doesn't. Being a monster is necessary, but it's the
Mm.
monster who will bring out all the ferocity necessary, but probably not more than necessary at a threat, and then turn around with the claws sheathed, or just say run while I'm dealing with this, or whatever. That's something that is against aspects of my nature, but at the same time
I'm gonna go with
is.
nurture for that one.
I don't know. I think it's both. Like I think I'd lean that way anyway, high agreeableness and so on. Um, I would say it was your nurture would have contributed to it, but whether whatever the source of it, if we take the starting point as when I became an adult,
Mm.
that was against my adult inclination. And so developing that has been an interesting thing. It's like it's not pure physical might. It's it's that being a monster that's under control. And I want I don't feel the confidence in being able to protect someone. The worst case scenario that my imagination conjures up is at night, suddenly a group of malevolent young men come out of the darkness from several angles with that sort of predatory grin. And then it's like, okay, there's five of them. There's one of me and my girl. I can't beat them all. What's going to happen? And
Go down swinging.
yeah,
That's the
but at
only
the
option.
same, yeah, there's also the sort of don't get into that scenario to start with, but it's the sort of thing that comes out of the darkness. You don't see it coming.
Well, yes, yes and no. You can avoid these things with much vigilance, but
Hmm.
not 100%. There's always going to be opportunities for evil to enter your life.
Hmm. And there's a scoping out phase to any such action by the malevolent party, that they don't just take the first person who walks along. What was it? Some pedophile spoke openly about how he chose his victims, and it was the girls with the dads he wasn't scared of. And
Yeah.
like the yeah, there's something here in the dark that I'm looking for, and I don't know what it is because I don't want to lose the kindness and the softness.
You don't. These things are
Yeah.
not mutually exclusive.
Hmm. I feel like the the kindness and the care amplifies it in the sense of, oh,
And I think
the
vice versa too.
mm, it's like care for someone if it's ready to be channeled the right way. Like fear of someone you love being harmed is an incredible motivator towards near berserker ferocity in the appropriate circumstances. It's like this, whatever bad thing will not occur until I'm dead type motivation. And
Yeah, deterrence is sufficient most of the time.
yeah, or even just like not running away or hiding from a threat. Also, like confronting the threat, just in small ways that stop it becoming big. Like I was walking my son to school, and there was a guy who, let's just say, he looked down on his luck in a granny flat like apartment near here, and I suspect he'd had something to drink. And I was walking past and just sort of looking in his direction. He's like, "What are you looking at?" And I'm like, "Saying hello." And just that sort of, "You're not scaring me, hi," type response of, it's not so much a confrontation as it's a, yeah, hi. It's just, it's not a cowering.
Mm,
And then he sort of, ooh, and sort of
yeah,
ignored me.
yeah.
And
Projecting your own fear and weakness is not helpful.
mm, so it's not so much as needing to show I'm the bigger predator here. It's not needing to give off that. You don't find, actually, that, how is it? You don't see who's the bigger predator until things actually come to a head. But like, there's the deep instinct to not come to that point. Like, you see animals all over
Yeah,
the animal kingdom, they posture and they try and work out, is this person bigger than me? Because I don't want to take on someone bigger than me
yeah,
because they'll
yeah.
beat me up.
You need to put across the vibe that the price would be too high to pay, that retaliation would be unreasonably high.
But even just giving across the vibe of, I'm not scared of you, whether whatever that comes from, like, yeah, I'm not scared of you. That's people, we judge ourselves by how others see us a lot. And if someone looks at you and they're not scared of you, then part of you thinks, why are you not scared of me?
Yeah,
Yeah, because you don't know what's in that person's head.
yeah.
You
We
can
have
see
it
their
built into
reaction.
us to avoid these things and to sense the signal.
Mm. Yeah, and I have some degree of confidence from martial arts practice that I could. Uh, Take on a drunk feels like the wrong phrasing, but it also feels like it might be accurate. Like, I think that me versus a drunk, I would probably win. Me
Probably.
versus an MMA fighter, I'd lose, of course.
Yeah.
But
There's not that
MMA
many of those.
fighters,
Yeah, they
actual
don't start
fighters,
shit. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like there was a thing I heard about. What was it? I think it was Joe Rogan saying it. He was on a bus full of MMA fighters, and they ended up in the middle of a violent protest. And one of the big fighters on board said, "Keep calm. If we need it, we might need our energy to fight our way out of this. It's not keep calm. Don't panic." It's like, okay, save your strength. We might need to punch people, and it's not running away
Oh,
from that. It's
I'd love to see that clip. So the drone just watch them swarm out of the bus and clear a path out. Just have this
I,
ring coming out of people falling down.
oh, I can just see them smashing the emergency exit windows to get out too. It's like,
Yeah.
why go through
Yeah,
the
that
door?
That would be hilarious.
Yeah, someone throws something and it's like
Yeah.
dodge or
Yeah, the
one
whole
rock
crowd.
lands.
You
One guy
just
gets
yeah,
taken
it'd just be
out
a
by the rock.
stream. It'd be a stream of people going out towards whatever exit, just
Yeah.
cutting their way through whatever was in their way. That'd be interesting, but I don't
And
know how to
we
help you
can
develop this part that you're trying to develop.
I think this is just the process of developing it, like playing with the idea, recognizing and feeding the impulse of I will protect, which is
Maybe.
still very subtly formed at the moment, but
It seems all a little intellectual,
mm,
but I don't think that the spirit that is that defense is an intellectual one.
no, I think I'm trying to intellectually understand it to open the paths in the lower self for it to manifest, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think for most people it's fueled by hate and animus.
Yeah, that you are threat.
Yeah. I will
Mm.
destroy you and I will enjoy it. And I wonder how much of that spirit is the thing that people pick up on. Because like you said, it can't be performative.
Mm.
And I think the intellectual side would only be performative.
Mm. And back to the discussion of the sort of social country scale,
All right.
that 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 type of instinct is very much frustrated in our current society in the sense of given nowhere to go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's driven underground.
And yeah, oh, I feel like the movie Fight Club is relevant to this.
I think it is. I think that's why it's a very important movie.
Mm,
That's why people don't stand up for people anymore. Whereas strangers get assaulted, people watch and film. They don't intervene.
There's been a
It's that thing
spate of
about
women
yeah, I heard about that.
being
The
randomly
quote.
punched in the face in New York City.
There's a quote about when seconds matter, the police are minutes away.
Mm,
What we need is we need citizens to stand up for each other. The olden days, you assault someone, someone else is going to shoot you or just lay you out. Whereas now
mm,
we do nothing. We think filming is helping.
mm. Then yeah, you can sue them for your medical bills while they're paralyzed.
Yeah, yeah, that's not helpful. Doesn't matter how many years the guy gets in jail if he managed to rape the woman in the first place while you watched. You're supposed to
Mm,
stop them, regardless of the risk to your own health. Protect doesn't mean just protect yours.
mm.
Men have a role and we've abandoned it. There's a million reasons why, but well, I suppose there's the other half of that. It's been like 150 years of women telling us that they don't want our protection.
I wonder if there's a correlation between not having kids and this sort of mindset that we're discussing. The
Hmm.
oh,
Yeah, I can say
yeah,
that pretty clearly. You know, I have daughters,
mm,
and the second that I had a daughter, my entire attitude towards sexuality, women, defensiveness changed immediately.
mm.
That thing about libertarians are just conservatives who haven't had kids yet.
But also in the likelihood to have kids, like the choices,
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, like tendency to ask to be sterilized at 20 or whatever.
I don't think that's common, unless you consider birth control sterilization
No, no, I was talking about actual
temporary,
surgery.
but yeah, no, I
Yeah.
don't think that's common at all. I think most people who have undergone those surgeries have done it post children.
Mm. The other
But there
thing
is an
triggering.
expectation. There is a built-in cultural expectation that women have are on temporary sterilization.
Mm.
That's assumed, I think, at this point. which is, well, I wonder what that does to the psyche.
Yeah, there's a lot of trends like that. It's like there's something not functioning here, and this is leaving any moral judgments of right or wrong or should or shouldn't out of it. It's just like there's patterns at play here that don't perpetuate.
Yeah. We've lost touch with
And
the reality,
mm,
which goes back to my point of perhaps a global conflict would be a good thing. Bit of a cull in crass words.
mm,
But we've lost touch with reality. Things like my nation versus other nations, or
mm,
having children to keep our nation going. It's all about me and my cozy indoor cat environment and what couch I have, like that scene from Fight Club, where he's cataloguing and buying furniture. You know, what kind of dining set matches me as a person. Meanwhile, the nation falls apart, has no one to look after, no one to love, and no one cares about them.
mm,
At the point where we don't protect women in the West, or
mm.
children, or our borders, or our identity, or our culture, or even defend ourselves against allegations, it's okay to hate white people thing.
Mm.
And people are like, yeah, that's fine. That's normal. We've been okay with everything being tilted in the direction of destruction of Western people in general, or Western
It's like,
identity.
oh, you know that condition that leads to feeling no pain? Like,
Yeah, I don't know the name of it, but yeah,
yeah, but it's like people who grow up never feeling pain, and so they need to check themselves. Oh, do I have any wounds? Check, 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 check.
yeah,
Oh, good. And then, oh, bugger, I burnt my hand on the stove again because I didn't feel it, and now my
yeah,
finger's cooked. Yeah, it's like that. It's a little like that. But it's almost like someone who grew up with pain, then just losing it without really realizing.
being desensitized.
Yeah, and at first that may feel like a good thing. I'm not sure how that carries through in the analogy, but as you lose the sense of pain, like imagine you get into the odd fight and then, oh, I'm getting tougher because this doesn't hurt.
Yeah,
And I could ignore the punches, I could ignore the insults, I could ignore groups coming after part of me in the social sense because I'm tough enough.
yeah.
And I could, and
But
you,
these things don't bother us.
yeah.
Yeah, but they
And
should.
then, and then suddenly you realize, hang on a minute, my leg's not working properly anymore, or something like that. Why am I feeling dizzy?
Yeah,
And
it's a good
yeah,
analogy. I feel like I would liken it more to like a psychological disorder or
mm,
dissociation. Now, these things aren't happening to me,
yes,
but they are. Like, we don't have a shared identity anymore. So when people attack Western identity,
mm,
or even like attacking white people, if you're going to make the racist example, even as a Westerner or a white person, most people go, well, that's not me. Kind of is, but
mm. Yeah, it's like you talk
they don't
about
have
dissociative
a
personality
connection.
things. This is a lack of associative with culture.
Yeah,
We're not
yeah, we're
seeing
too
the other.
individual.
Mm.
Yeah, we're too individual to the point where we're atomized.
Oh, oh, one versus a country. Used to be traitor. Now it's anti-hero.
Mm, yeah, Yeah, that thing of don't ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
And these days we hear that, and with the current mentality, that sounds very culty.
Yeah, yeah. We think
The
it's all
cult
about us. Well, we become too individual. That's why we don't help each other anymore. It's why we think
there's,
it's fine to falsely advertise.
there's an element of the cult-like thought process that's natural, which is why it works. Like the idea of
Tribal.
having a yeah,
You got to
a
belong to
strongly
something.
associated tribe. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to belong to something. That's what a
Mm.
nation's meant to be. We belong to the nation. This is our culture, our identity, our
Mm.
home. You
It's not
stay
government.
out. We
It's
protect
different.
ourselves. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it
Government
used
and
to be
nation are
New
different.
Zealanders or Westerners,
Yeah.
Americans, and now it's me
Yeah. Like
alone.
nation is like the group with which you feel camaraderie.
Yeah, yeah. It's a people.
Yeah.
It's always been a people. It's like this is our people, and we
Mm.
do things our way. And it's the doing things our way that's the important thing. I gotta feel like I have to make this statement because of the, people will make racist claims. People would rather hang around with other people of a different race if they had their same accent
Mm.
than people of the same race who had a different accent.
Mm.
It's not skin color, it's are you one of my people? My people talk like this, we act like this, we like this thing, we don't like that thing. This is our group. It's
Mm.
not about race, it's about cultural integration.
Yeah.
We are a
And
cultural unit.
if you have your group and you have a few people who speak very differently and do things very differently, oh, that's interesting. Oh, and so you learn a bit about it and you get a bit of mixing and you have the sort of more diverse areas of town, or you have the areas where okay, the people from this country tend to go here, and so you've got a bit of a mix. You can have some of that
Mm.
within it, right? That's
Yeah, and the
fertilizing.
balance of the balance of yes, that's exactly right,
Mm.
because new ideas prevents sterility.
Mm.
The balance of that is the balance between left and right, effectively. How
Mm.
open should the borders be? How closed should they be? And the answer is not 100% or zero. It's a balance depending on the cultural needs.
Mm.
We're getting too fragmented and too dissociated. Borders need to be closed. We need to get integration back. We're getting too stale and too rigid. We need to open things up a bit and let in some new ideas and meet some new people. That's what these forces are here for. But social media, being the poison that it is, has put everything to 100. There is no space for nuance anymore.
And now the nations that we form are internet subcultures,
Yeah,
which are
yeah,
utterly dissociated in the physical space.
yeah. That's why whatever the new right is, or the whatever you call post-liberal faction, the people who broke away from whatever liberals have become,
Mm.
are like slightly allied with the right, but slightly not. And it also doesn't seem to matter what country they're in, which is really interesting.
Mm.
Like people all over the world paying attention to the United States elections more than their own,
Mm.
because that's where the cultural battle is, not the legal one, but the cultural one.
Mm.
Whatever the in group is not a thing that's defined by geography anymore. And I really wonder what that's going to mean, because law and culture is now separate. And it was never separate before because they had to be forced into the same place because of geography.
Mm.
Where now cultural groups are without borders. I
I
wonder,
feel like it's mm.
I know this is a very um, crazy idea, but I really do wonder if immigration was far more open and places like the United States, say it's split, then you had it still was the cultural hub, but you had the two cultures effectively split into their own territories, but immigration was open. What would happen to the world? say it was open everywhere, and you end up with geographically separated areas where people of whichever intellectual tree or cultural tree, which would be better, moved to that place. Because at the moment we've got this polka dot thing where everyone's everywhere, but the culture is spread. You can kind of see it in the states, within the states, because they have the different states, but there's free movement
Mm.
between them, where red states are getting redder and blue states are getting bluer, and everyone's crossing boundaries to be with the people that they want to be with.
Okay, on that point, I'd heard about a lot of people leaving the bluer states because the blue states were getting too blue; they were getting ultraviolet.
Yeah,
Um,
I like
Interesting
that.
extension to the metaphor.
Yeah, ultraviolet and infrared. That's great.
Yeah, yeah. If you get too ultraviolet, you get cancer.
I feel
Um,
like it should be the other way around, just for the way we use those words. You have ultra red and
mm,
infraviolet, or infra blue. But
uh, yeah, yeah. But what was it? Yeah, there was a concern about people who were slightly left leaning, leaving the left places because they were too left, and ending up in the uh, right leaning areas and making them more left leaning.
left leaning. Yeah, yeah, bringing their policies with them, which were the problems
Mm,
in the first place. It would be the nature of the right leaning people to be concerned about that because they care more
mm,
about borders. So they want it to be closed. They want it to be their people
mm.
more than the left leaning people do.
So has
But then
that
you've got,
happened?
yes, but you've got the yin
Mm,
yang thing.
mm,
It is good to have people like that in the area as long as there's not too many.
mm,
And that's where border control comes in handy, effectively.
mm. I heard a Texas border patrol officer was recently found smuggling immigrants across the border, and he was branded a traitor.
Yeah, things are getting pretty hot over there with the border.
Yeah.
They've had like, they're really, really close to having armed skirmishes with the cartels. It's like, at what point is that a literal invasion?
Mm,
The old military age males thing.
mm, yeah. It was interesting. I I asked my new girlfriend, still feels weird, because she's out of the country for the month because of
She's
pre-planned
in,
trip.
she's in China, isn't she?
Yes. Well, she's just left
Oh,
there to go on a family holiday, but I won't spill too many of
okay,
her
so not in
details.
China.
Not
That's good.
not anymore.
Yeah, yeah, good. I hope they didn't go through their phone. Well, they did, but you know what I mean. Careful what you
Yeah,
have in evidence.
yeah. Anyway, um, I asked about her opinion on the Chinese immigrants into the US, and
Yeah, Canada
the
problem.
what was it? A lot of the people heading to the US are heading for a bright future in a place that has long been seen as a bright future, and now the way seems open, so they're running for it. So
Mm,
that's here where we've been has always been bad. That has always been good. Let's try and get there. Whereas the Chinese attitude is it was good in China, now it's got bad. We're trying to get out to somewhere that's where it's better to be homeless in America than in China because in China you just get kicked out or killed. In America you've got homeless shelters and so on. It's like it's running away from something that got worse to something that's not terrible rather than
right, but
running
still
from
having the
something bad to good.
nostalgia for what it was,
Mm,
which is, I
yeah.
suppose, the same thing as the blue dogs showing up in red states.
Mm,
Yeah, I miss when California was great. I'll go to Texas. I'll go live in Austin and vote for everything I did in California.
mm,
Like that'll work because I like how it is here now, but I miss how it was there. So I'll make it like it was, and then it'll go bad again. People shift.
yeah.
It's always going to be the case, and I think this will always be a bit of a cat and mouse thing. But yeah, I
I thought
wonder
we'll
how
just
it'll play out on the. This will be interesting if we get absolute poverty throughout the world. up quite a bit. Like, so it's not the case anymore. I mean,
Okay, so absolute
what would the
poverty
world?
reduced.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
bring up the people is what I mean.
Mm.
What would the world look like if free movement was more available
It's
and
the
people did
relative.
it not for economic reasons so
Mm.
much, but
People who are
for
starving
cultural?
only see that they are starving. Once
Yeah,
you get beyond that, then you start to look at the comparison and the relative.
yeah, and then you look at culture.
Mm. What happens when having a private jet becomes a target on your back?
Hmm. Yeah, well, that would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that starting.
Yeah, it's
Like,
getting that way. Bit of that
yeah,
envy and hatred for the successful.
uh,
Not that
it's
they
like
don't
the.
deserve it, but it doesn't historically go well.
Mm, I feel like there's been a whipping up of the environmental lobby as sort of a pet protest group, and then some of them are going off and saying, "Look, why are you flying to Davos every year?" And it's like,
It's a
"No,
good
no, no,
distraction.
yeah."
Yeah,
It's like, "No, be angry at the other guys, not us. We give you money."
yeah. It's a good distraction.
Yeah.
Like we're all fighting over stupid things when the real problems are going unsaid. Well, it was Occupy Wall Street that fell into this
Mm,
DEI crap, and it was very convenient because they were, protesting something real, or like the
mm.
Tea Party. They fell apart pretty quick, and that's effectively what Republicans are now.
But the advantage of failing is that you learn from it. And you don't
Some people
quite
do.
fail the same way twice. Not everyone
Individually,
learns.
yes.
Yeah.
Individually, yes, but culturally, that's a harder argument to make.
I think culturally it takes a bit longer because of the numbers involved.
Yeah,
But
you got the lowest common denominator problem.
yeah, but it still applies over the long term. Like you can't apply the same methods
Yeah, it just takes
infinitely.
time. Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah, but as long as your method works for 20 or 30 years, and you've come up
mm,
with another one, and then a chain of them.
yeah, like DEI seems to have run out of shelf life.
Yeah, we've definitely gone past what is it, peak woke.
Mm.
But yeah, it's really hard to know what's going to happen now. We're just all waiting, really,
Yeah,
at this point.
that is the feeling. Yeah, yeah. It's just like
Something's going to
waiting.
happen.
Yeah.
And we checked out for a long time. We used to fight in the days of Trump's election and a wee bit after, and then everyone sort of checked out and went, okay, these people are just going to run rampant, so let them run rampant. And things just get worse and worse and worse. And we're sitting around waiting. Everyone moved out of the cities. Everyone moved to the states that they wanted to move to. Everyone stopped watching so much. And now, with things brewing, global conflict, things brewing domestically, I feel like whatever cultural faction this seems to be is just sort of sitting and waiting.
Mm.
There's no point trying to predict. There's no point trying to act until whatever happens next because something's going to happen.
Mm.
We just don't know what.
I wonder. There's big things that can happen, and but it's more likely that whatever starts happening will be attempts will be made to cover it up. Like if something starts unraveling in the background or something starts to become apparent, there'll be attempts to still look strong to cover up the weaknesses.
Unless it's something they want to have happen.
In that sense, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just trying to think of what signs to look for.
Well, that depends a lot on what you think would happen.
Mm,
Like, war's going to be interesting.
mm.
The draft is still real, at least for men,
Yeah, yeah. There's a
which I think is, by the way, really not cool. thing. It's the left-leaning pro-establishment parties who are pushing a war, and
Mm,
women vote 80-20 towards those parties,
mm.
but they don't have the draft.
Oh,
Mm. That's a real problem because, by the way, men vote the other way. It's
that's
like 70.
interesting.
It's like 70-30 for men, right to left.
Just trying to
And at the
just.
moment, those parties are anti-war.
Mm. I'm just thinking of the sort of psychological roots of that. Like you've got uh, the higher female,
Sorry, I just had a thought.
yeah, the higher female sensitivity to threats,
Mm,
like walking down a dark street, fearing for your life. Guys walking down a dark street and oh, no one's here, okay, and not really caring.
yeah,
On the countrywide level, women looking at the global situation, think, threats. Okay, okay, we need to be ready to fight. We need to be ready to fight because threats. Just that on some level.
yeah. Do you
For
go and
guys, it's like,
protect me?
yeah.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
guys, like, we're strong. We
Historically,
don't need to
that's
worry about
that's
things.
been the case. I think, both of the world wars. That's what happened to Western countries, the ones that weren't immediately pulled in, like the US.
Hmm.
What I think would be really funny,
Mm-hmm.
it would take a hell of a person to get this through, but to put amendments through for whatever founding document of the Western country in question, put through a referendum, and option A is women get the draft, and option B is women lose the vote, and just put it up for election. In fact, make it that only women can vote for that election. You choose. Because at the end of the day, this is kind of an unacceptable situation where you're
Mm.
voting for war, but you don't get to go because you're not subject to the draft. So you can vote for war, you win, and then all the men get drafted and go to war. And we voted against it.
Is
That's kind of
the
unacceptable. And if you're going to beat beat the bushes about protecting our democracies, that matters like a lot.
well, there is no,
How would
there is an
women vote?
element of it feeling right for the guys to go up and defend the woman. Like there's an element of that makes sense there, but that's with a
Yeah,
cohesive society where both are
exactly.
saying yes, we need to do this.
Where men choose to do it. Yeah,
Yeah, but where it's
yeah.
separated and where it's a conflict
And when
situation, it's like
yeah, and men are voting against it and women are
mm,
voting for it, that's kind of a problem.
it's a breakdown.
Yeah, it's a
It's
real big one. And it's going to be a lot of resentment based on that. I really wonder which way women would vote given that choice.
there's a trend I've seen on the internet a few times, commented on of what's it? It's presented a few different ways, but it's like the joke is woman's like, oh, feminism, rah, 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 rah. World War Three is announced. I'll be in the kitchen, dear.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly what you'd have happen. Every talking head everywhere, every media personality would be calling it off the bat. Well, obviously we're just going to vote to get the draft. Like we're strong, we can take care of ourselves, we can go and fight. With and then it'll come back like 80-20 in favor of taking away the vote. You know what would be even better is making it
Mm.
a specific choice to the individual.
It, if you want to vote,
Make
you
it
get
everyone.
to yeah.
Yeah, take the sex element out of it. Everyone has to
Mm.
register to vote. If you register to vote, you get the draft. Or you can choose not to vote and you don't get the draft. Conscious subjective. You can sit out of politics, you can not vote, but no going to war for you.
Mm.
Service guarantees citizenship. I think that would be great. Even better, make it that If you do want the vote, you have to go and do 6 months military training on government dime. They pay for it, you get the vote, you have military training, and you have a rifle and you have to keep it.
I think it's a drastic step.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. But okay, if you have a cohesive society where the two sexes are in cooperation in general
Yeah.
and on the same page and so on, yeah, I think that that would be a step to avoid. If you have the cooperation's gone, it's open warfare between the sexes, which seems to have taken place in many ways, then you're never going to get it through. But at the
Which
same
one
time,
to avoid?
yeah, we're
You said
trying
a
to.
situation to avoid. Which in particular of the ridiculous scenarios that they put forth? Because I'm just being honest. I don't think this situation should be ethically allowed to continue.
Hmm.
That a woman could vote for war to begin against the wishes of her husband or her brother or her son, and yet they get drafted and she doesn't.
I think the main disconnect is in the lack of care for others' outcomes, more an understanding of that side of the psychology for me, like the lack of
Maybe,
empathy.
maybe, but legally, I don't think it can legally be allowed to happen.
Yeah,
Like
it's
people
like,
make choices based on incentives.
I think
The
taking
answer
the,
is people should just be better. It's like, well, that's great. We
I
don't
think
need laws
taking
against
the,
murder because people just shouldn't do it.
hmm,
Like, yeah,
I
we
think
kind of need them.
in one sense, sending the woman to war is a terrible thing for the future of the society because then you're making the next generation smaller.
Agreed. Although I don't think they'd like that statement very much.
I
Like
think,
my point is, if you were going to go
mm,
on a national stage and make the argument on why we need this bill passed or this referendum, you
mm,
would be hated. But that kind of makes the point of why we need it even more, doesn't it? Because you would be only hated by half the people.
mm. I think that if we take sex out of it entirely, like
Mm.
if you well, in the current thing, how many people are going to try and get out of the draft by being trans and saying I'm a woman now?
I think a lot of people,
Yeah,
honestly, immediately. I think that's going to be a very large percentage. I've seen memes going around that for years.
and how many soy boys are just like, nope, nope, I'm not going in the army, no,
Yeah,
and they're having to drop the thresholds for passing and basic training, so I've heard, and so
yeah.
on.
Perhaps they should do it the other way around. You don't have to go and sign something. You don't have to, do training or whatever. But just
Mm,
if you voted in the last election cycle, you were eligible for the draft for that election cycle.
mm,
If you didn't vote, you're not. Because back in the day, it used to be a vote per household, one vote per household, which
mm,
is why it was men who had the vote, because they didn't want the husband voting for one thing and the wife voting for another thing, and then their interests being misaligned. Obviously, there's lots of problems with that, but we're not at that stage now. I do think women should be able to vote how they like, but I also think that it needs to be legally equal,
mm.
just because of this one issue.
Yeah. The
It's
one
also very
way of
interesting because women vote very different from men on
mm,
every measure.
oh, that would be a crazy way to do it. Um,
You know,
in the
we
sense
don't
of
talk
throwing
about
out
that.
crazy ideas.
Mm,
Oops. Um, husband and wife go into their own voting booths, um, sign their papers, or fill in their things. They then get stapled together without being looked at, so it's all um, secret. Is secret the right word? Like, these two voting papers are a pair. No one
yeah.
knows who voted. They don't each know what they each voted. So, secret voting. Put them together. If they disagree, the vote doesn't count. If they agree, then the vote counts.
Ooh,
So you
that's
need to
interesting.
have cooperation.
Okay, as an example on that though, my wife and I both voted for different parties in the last election,
Mm,
but we both voted for parties on the same side of the political spectrum.
Mm.
These parties are now in a, what do you call it?
Coalition?
Yes, together.
Mm.
So together those parties formed the government, but we voted for the different ones. Would that count? Would that not count?
I think it doesn't work with a MMP system
No,
because you can vote
it
for different
doesn't.
parties and they can both be for the same government. I think that it would a first past the post system, a US style system where it's like you vote for one guy or the other guy. Come on, focus camera. Um, in that case, if you're voting for that guy or the other guy and the votes disagree, cancelling out.
It's a negative.
Mm.
You know, it would be even funnier in situations where that happens, where husband votes Republican and wife votes Democrat. Their votes don't cancel out. It becomes a single vote, and the vote goes to third party. It becomes a wild card vote. You two couldn't agree, so now your vote together, you get one out of the two of you, and it goes to a third party. Just whichever third party candidate is running, if there is one, just as a wild card. If no one in the country can agree within their households on who to vote for, then you get the random third party candidate.
This sort of system should be trialed at small scale before being applied at large scale.
Yeah, maybe. But then it wouldn't be as funny.
Who would be the third if you had Joe Biden and Trump as your first choices? Who would be the
It's
wild
Kennedy.
card?
It's Kennedy.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
gone third party. Yeah.
he's relatively sane. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be Kennedy. Who would be a great third party candidate. Yeah. Obviously, he's not going to win, but you get the point.
Mm. I wonder how much longer the Democrat and Republican parties will last in their current form, because there's a changing of the guard happening in the Republican Party, and the Democrat Party is steadily shooting itself in the
I
foot
think
with a
it's
shotgun.
happened.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of Republicans resigning, and the type of Republicans are resigning, their old guard that are resigning.
Mm.
I think it's Trump's party now. I think he won.
Mm-hmm. There was a thing I
Democrats,
did.
however, interesting question.
Yeah, a song lyric. What was it? My covert narcissism, my disguises altruism, like some kind of congressman. And congressman said with venom.
Yeah, I think I've heard that as well. Is that Green Day? Who is that?
Oh, Taylor Swift.
Oh, yeah, there's two. Oh,
Yeah,
you're right.
anti-hero. Yeah,
That's
but
funny
it's
to
like,
have her say that. Yeah.
yeah, but the idea that you can use it in it's so relatable that you can use it in a song, a pop song, so it has to be
Yeah.
very relatable.
Yeah.
That the idea that congressmen are, what would you call it?
Yeah, they just pretend to care.
Yeah, they're bottom feeders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what a politician is. Downstream from culture.
Oh, unrelated thought, but what would you put on a bingo card for
For what?
this year and another one for next year, maybe? But like,
Oh, God. What is this, end of the world bingo card?
just
Oh, God.
chaos bingo card. Just sort of like, you can't put Chip Hits Bridge on it.
That's another one of those. We managed to make it political. The last boat stuck thing was not political, but this one is.
How is that political?
It's being accused to be intentional.
Yeah,
Like it was a hack on the system.
not impossible. Investigation needed, but it's also entirely plausible. It was just dumb bad luck.
Yeah, I think they didn't investigate it, but stated by fact that it was not
Yeah,
malicious. And that's why
yeah,
people are like, yeah, you didn't have enough time to investigate that, mate.
yeah. Yeah,
Right.
that makes it suspicious on its own. It doesn't mean that it was deliberate, but it's like, you're lying. Why are you
Yeah,
lying about this?
yeah. This is an odd thing. Why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. There's too many things to put on that. Really,
Biden dies before the election.
Biden dies after the election.
Is the next president?
Yeah, he's elected, but he dies before inauguration.
What's does the VP just get straight in there?
Yeah, yeah. VP gets
Oh
it.
God, Kamala. People would hate her even more than Biden.
Well, that's if she's VP.
Yeah,
People are making the joke of they think Hillary will be VP.
that would be slightly less bad, I think.
I don't know
I
about
don't
that.
know.
I don't know about that, man.
Yeah, true, true.
Obama's the president
Maliciousness.
anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Oh, what would be on there? Some sort of, well, some sort of pandemic scare. I'll put that on there.
Oh yeah, yeah. The next pandemic, turning off electricity somewhere because of environmental reasons. You know, you're not allowed to drive today because of pollution or something.
Mm.
Nuclear device detonated.
Yeah, yeah, I'd put that in
Yeah,
there. A
yeah.
nuke
That
goes
one.
off somewhere.
A nuke goes off somewhere in Europe.
Yeah. Or somewhere in the world. Probably Europe.
Just look at whatever the Babylon Bee or the Onion's written and predict those because they're likely to happen.
Or The Simpsons.
Yeah. Or what was that thing about ingenious move? Trump supports impeachment, forcing Democrats to oppose. Just something like that.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that, like, you know how they were accusing him of overvaluing his properties?
No, yeah, I did hear about that. Yeah.
Yeah, every property apparently has its taxable value and its sale value, and these are explicitly different values.
Yeah.
And there was one TV personality who was decrying Trump for doing this, and someone went and looked up his numbers. And,
Yeah,
oh,
looked at
you
his
did it.
shit and it's like, yeah, you just the same. For like a
Yeah,
way bigger deal.
and a whole lot of real estate people apparently saying, I'm not touching New York because of what happened to Trump.
Yeah, because this is just how the business is done, and now I'm
Yeah.
gonna not do business there. Yeah. Ah, well, they'll try and get him for anything. I don't know. He runs. Trump wins election and holds what, a press conference from prison. The State of the
Oh,
Union from behind bars. I think he could just pardon himself once he's president anyway, so that doesn't really matter.
yeah.
Yeah. I
What
don't
was
know.
it? Trump wins and the
There's a
other
lot of
side
stuff.
claim he cheated.
Oh yeah, yeah. The
Yeah.
election was rigged. These ballots dropped off in the middle of the night. We need to look at these voting machines. Just everything that they were denying for the last like 6 years or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Because of course that's what they did the last election. Oh, Trump got elected. It was rigged. It was Russia. It was the ballot machines and all of these ballots out of nowhere. And then it happens to Biden, and everyone's like, shh.
Yeah.
No, most secure. What was Crowder's bit? Every time he wanted to make reference to the election being rigged or shady or stolen or whatever, he would make a bit about most safe and secure election ever. Just going
Yeah.
the complete opposite way.
Oh yeah. I wonder on the bingo card. I wonder if something along the lines of. Uh, I was wanting to say this would be a stretch, but the way things have gone, um, an admission that the vaccines weren't as good as they were described as,
Well, we had
or
like 16 of those by now.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
or some link between them and cancer or something.
I would say actual prosecution on the bingo card,
Mm.
but it'd be like Fauci prosecuting someone else or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The guys at the
Yeah,
top get away.
yeah, yeah. The policymakers will turn around and start prosecuting Pfizer. when it was
Yeah.
like, yeah.
China invade Taiwan.
Yeah.
That'd be on there.
I think that's World War III right there.
Yep.
Although Intel's done a lot of work to make that not such of a big deal.
In terms of diversifying their production base for chips.
Well, it's not TSMC. They don't have 3 nanometer. They're nowhere near as good. But they've got pretty advanced 7 nanometer. And it would be a step backwards, but they don't manufacture there. Yeah, Intel's based in the United States, Israel, and somewhere else.
Well, Israel could still get nuked. Hamas get one.
Jesus Christ. It would be, yeah, that would be bad. Fucking
Yeah,
hell.
there was a sci-fi story.
I don't know what would happen.
Yeah.
What would globally happen if that came to pass?
If Israel got nuked.
But I think it would be bad. I think the United States would go ham on whoever did it in a real brutal way. And I don't think anyone would bat an eye either. You would have the West. Yeah, I think if Israel got nuked, I think the West would destroy the Arab world without hesitation and without mercy.
They're a little bit like the Dragon's reverse scale.
Sorry?
So the reverse scale thing, it's the one weak point on the dragon. So the dragon is impervious in all areas
yes.
except
The loose scale.
Yeah.
For the West, you mean?
Yeah, or for America. But then again, I'd want to put some revelation of the West not as strong as they think they are. Like half the nukes are inoperable, or most of the nukes are inoperable.
Maybe. But I think we also haven't seen the West mobilize in a long time.
That's true.
And I get the feeling that we've been playing the look at us, aren't we so weak card for a while. I wonder if we're actually a lot stronger than we let on.
Wouldn't mobilization be hindered severely by population infighting?
I don't think so. I think that would be a step drastic enough to silence the infighting. Because look, we're the Western world. All they would need to say is it's the new Holocaust, and that's over. No one would say anything about it. I don't care how pro-Palestine you are. Everyone would shut up at that point, and they would do whatever they were told to avoid the anti-Semitic label. And whoever didn't would probably be persecuted within the nation. We haven't changed that much. This is my big bet on the West, is that I don't think we've actually changed. I think we're just being quiet. And I think that if it came down to it, if military action, if war was declared, all of this crap that we've been slinging at each other would disappear overnight. I think the West is still as brutal as it always was, and still as pro itself and its ideals as it always was. I think the Republicans and the Democrats would fall in line immediately. I think all the diversity and inclusion stuff would just disappear straight away. I think the citizens would just fall in line too. Because the us becomes all of us, and the them becomes them.
And any threat to that, internal or external, would be fought.
Yeah, it would be crushed.
So you wouldn't see the government versus the people in the same way we've got now.
No, I don't think it would be like Vietnam with the people resisting. I think it would be like 1940s. Everyone on board, all steam ahead.
There was an article I read recently describing, what was that title?
I think it's going to happen.
Yeah. He described our society as a Lenocracy, where Leno is the Latin for pimp. in the sense of, ticket clippers,
Yeah,
like pimps in the sense if they don't add anything to the transaction, they just sort of take their cut along the way.
yeah,
And then that describes our society as a whole. And
yeah,
the scenario you're describing would be screw all the ticket clippers, they're all fired, make thing happen now.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
even the ticket clippers themselves would turn around and join the fight.
Mm. If they saw it as a fight for their survival as much as anyone else.
I think the propaganda machine is strong enough,
Mm.
and I think that those of us who are outside the propaganda machine would agree with the direction anyway.
Mm.
Because think about it, the propaganda machine at the moment is the thing that's pointing things inwards in a weird sense. But if a situation like that were to occur, it would immediately be pointed outwards. And as we've seen over the last few years, that works.
Mm.
We all these liberals were really against Russia the second that they were told to be.
Mm.
And people on the outside of the control system, if were to be declared against the West's enemies, I think we would go with them anyway.
Mm.
Because the people on the outside of the control system are pro-West. So we'd do it anyway. There'd be some anti-war people, but I don't think that there's as many of them as they say.
That's a
Russia is the
strange
least
note.
likely.
That it's a strange position to be in, like fully acknowledging the horrors of war, but at the same time seeing it as inevitable and likely to be a needed wake up call.
Yeah, I think it would be one of the best things that's happened to the West in a long time. And I'm wondering if that is the point.
Mm.
Like, there's a cartoon by Freedom Turns that anyone listening should go and find. It's very, very good. Where it's Biden behind closed doors, and the whole bit of the cartoon is that all of the stumbling and the slurring, everything is an act. And he's like a super based, hates everything that he's supporting guy.
Mm.
And the main, he does this big evil rant with red lights behind him, and then the exposition character asks him like, "Well, why are you doing this? Why are you supporting it?" And his comment is, "Because I'm wrong, and nothing bad will happen." Essentially, the bring on the collapse so we can get there faster kind of viewpoint. Let's get
Mm.
there. Let's have it happen because it's what needs to happen. So let's do it as fast as we physically can to avoid the pain in the meantime.
And the
Like
hope that
Tyrion.
a short, sharp shock will bring people to.
Yeah,
Mm.
that it'll help. But all of a
But
sudden people will see that, oh, what I'm doing is not helpful. It's actually making everything worse.
I still
And
feel
maybe I
like
need to care about country and
I
culture.
still feel like we're going to see a lot of squabbling. Maybe that'll be the stable situation. Lots of countries squabbling among themselves and having alliances and
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
small intercountry wars rather than big all-consuming conflicts.
But if it does happen, if the button is pressed even
Mm.
once, or if it's declared that we're mobilizing, I think all internal fighting will end almost instantaneously.
There'd have to be a
Like
good enough reason, I think. Although,
I
how much of
do
the internal fighting is manufactured?
yeah, that's my point right there.
Mm.
I wonder if the internal fighting is actually manufactured by the West. And it's done that as a mask to the rest of the world of, hey, we're weak. Don't worry about us. We're not a threat. Go on. Do what it is you were going to do. And then all of a sudden, the switch is flipped, the mask is dropped, and it's, we've caught you with your pants down.
Mm. Yeah. There's
You've
certainly a trope.
overextended yourselves.
Mm.
Because you can look at China right now, they are overextending themselves.
Mm.
like a
Does
lot,
the,
because they
the
think we're weak.
yeah. Does the trope in what was it, HFY fiction, Human Zephyr?
They're not.
It's a subculture,
Okay.
I think. Yeah. But basically various forms of stories lots of people write. Uh Humans go out in the galaxy, meet galaxy, so on. Others think, oh, those crazy humans, they're fighting amongst each other all the time. And then someone attacks and beats the humans down by a large margin. And then, or assumes that the fight will go quickly because the humans are fighting amongst themselves. So they'll just take out one faction and
Yeah.
then the others
All
will
the
be like,
guns that are
yay.
pointing inwards suddenly come out. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Like the brothers fighting, and then someone attacks or does anything to one of the brothers, and suddenly all the brothers are fighting in one direction. It's
Yeah.
like no one beats up my brother but me.
Yeah. Yeah. We're just practicing.
Hmm.
We are war machines. Each individual person is, and we practice until the hall comes.
Hmm. And these days, it's like,
And I think that's women too,
hmm.
to be clear.
Hmm.
This is not unique to men. If we evolved for tribal warfare, then so did they.
Hmm. Possibly a different role in it, but nonetheless.
Yes, yes. But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean anti,
Hmm.
because it's their lives on the line, their
Yeah.
children. Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah. I'm also thinking of like with modern warfare, FPV drones. Like the guys who are like, wee, I fly this drone around trees. Just
Yeah,
strap an explosive dart to it. And it wouldn't take
yeah,
much to add bomb dropping target practice to
yeah. And all
those
you would
FPV
need
things.
is I forget the technology, but there's a technology where you can have a barrel that you run electrical current through, and you can stack it up with bullets from the barrel end to the base, and
Ah,
you can fire them in sequence, so you don't have to have magazines. There's a
ah,
bunch of guns that use that technique,
mm,
but that would be really really good for a drone. You just pin a couple of those on the bottom, and yeah, it might only have a single round, a single clip full of ammo, but it would certainly save on weight and space. Embed it in the middle of the device so that it's not counterbalancing it. And then all of a sudden, you've got a drone that can be flowed in VR and take out a squad, because they're
mm,
not going to hit it. It's going to move too quick, and all it needs to do is get close enough to get through armor or get a clear, you know, a gap in the armor,
mm.
and you go take out a group of people,
Well,
or
frankly,
100,000 of them in the sky.
even a drone with just a laser tagging system. It's like you fly around, oh, there, laser on. And even if they've
Yeah,
got a detector, it's like beep, where?
bang.
Yeah, and then you've got another one from on high that's like, okay, there you go,
Yeah,
drop the thing that then targets the laser dot, and there's a bunch of
yeah.
different
Just
ways to do
just
it.
have them really high up. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or even just drop grenade.
Weapons have gotten pretty advanced,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think nuclear is going to play a big part in this.
Mm.
That'll be a good wake up call too.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see how an EMP nuke would play with this type of modern warfare.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have
Because
all these hacking systems embedded in every infrastructure in the country, or every country on the planet. Just everything's infected. But there's also just the I'll detonate a nuke above your country, and now you've got no computers at all.
yeah,
Then what?
yeah.
All you need to do is have a plane fly one over, because then they wouldn't, be like, oh, a missile launched. Just looks
Oh,
like a regular cargo plane, or
above
it's a
it needs to
drone.
be above the atmosphere, I think. It's the
Yeah, it
gamma
needs to be
rays.
real high up. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but
But
you could launch something, like you could send a drone up real close, an undetectable one, and then launch something off the top that doesn't need to be such a big thing,
mm,
so that it's not as detectable.
a balloon.
Yeah, yeah. Just have one suspended in the inside of like a balloon. Yeah,
Yeah. Or like a satellite that's already up there, just waiting
yeah,
for the go signal.
yeah, yeah. Just drop it.
Well, you wouldn't need to drop it from low Earth orbit.
Well,
That's where
if
you
it's in the
detonate
right
it.
place, then yeah, you just detonate it there and use the
Yeah.
satellite. So what?
Yeah, so you take out a lot of satellites, but it's war. You take out a
Yep.
country.
Yep. Back to the Stone Age.
Hmm.
Yeah, like what happens when nuclear weapons are used in an EMP fashion? What technology? We only have mechanics left then.
Well, you can harden electronics against that sort of EMP, but it's hard because
It's
there's two
difficult.
waves of it. There's one that's like
Yeah,
a very sharp shock of static electricity through anything,
yeah,
and if the electronics can survive that, the delicate bits, then it'll be all right.
yeah.
And then there's
Military
the
stuff, perhaps, but I
yeah.
imagine it's not all up to snuff.
Well, if you wrap something in aluminium foil and then in Glad wrap and then aluminium foil, basically you're trying to give a path around it,
Mm.
or a steel case that's earthed, so a microwave.
Yeah. Yep, yep. Faraday cage.
Yeah, maybe I
Mm.
should get an old microwave to store my radios in. Not really
Well,
keen.
they don't all work that well.
Hmm.
The amount of ones that I've been like at friends' houses and testing. Like, hey, is this a Faraday cage? Nope, you need a new microwave. Hmm.
Because the cell phone still works when it's inside.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I've done that to people's houses and they're like, they're fine and they start cooking stuff. I'm like, I'm leaving. Bye.
Hmm.
Oh well. There are a
Yeah.
couple hours. We should probably call it there.
Yep. Oh well. The bingo
Bye.
cards not being filled.
Oh god, yeah. But it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
This is about the positive side of the horrible future we have. Just remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. People can get back to farming. Use steam engines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe there is a point to low tech.
Yeah. Oh
Well,
well.
there's also the physics got us into this mess, so can fucking well get us out of it.
Simple physics.
Maybe.
Yeah. Oh well. Till next time.
Till next time.